Welcome to CRM Audio Live. I'm Joel Lindstrom, and I'm joined by a new cast of characters. Let's go around. Iain, you start. Introduce yourself.
Iain Connolly, Bearded 365 guy. Just rebranded myself for the last couple of weeks. Functional consultant based in Scotland.
And you're a Knicks fan?
Yeah, as much as when I went to New York, I decided I was. Mark got me this hat actually when he was there because I asked him to get me a baseball cap. But yeah.
Cool.
I think I chose quite well with
that. Andrew?
Hey, my name's Andrew Bibby. I'm a Dynamics 365 consultant. I should say Power Platform, I guess, as well. It's such a mouthful. And I'm from the UK.
Shawn?
And I'm Shawn Tabor, CRM Hobbit. How's it going, everybody? Power Platform Solution Architect.
Mark?
I am Mark Christie. What am I this week? I am a Microsoft Dynamics Principal Consultant in Scotland.
They're the expensive ones, right?
They're the ones that make all the decisions but duck all of the flack.
Smoking medals.
Wheeler dealers, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
All right, so last week we went through about half of the massive release plan Wave 2 document. We didn't really touch on field service, so that's why we brought Mr. Hobbit here, because he actually knows something about field service. So, Shawn, fill us in on the roadmap for field service.
Well, really, in the release notes that we got, it's really focusing on the new guide functionality. We got to see a little bit of that at the BizApp Summit. Pretty cool functionality. Basically, it's using the mixed reality to present step-by-step process maps to the work that you're doing in context of the machine or device that you're working on. So it does really cool things like helps you understand and be able to see, if you're threading a cable underneath an assembly and there's a cover over the assembly, you can see underneath it without having to take it apart. So that's some really cool things happening there. I'm looking to see if that's going to, much like remote assist is going to mobile, if that would go to mobile as well, because there's some really great applications that I can think of, especially for new technicians doing on-the-job training. If perhaps you have someone that's working with a new technician doing training, that they could be following along on a mobile device and not have to have a whole HoloLens as well. Right now, the guides are HoloLens 2 required, so it's still an expensive kind of solution. Neat functionality, but right now it's going to be a little while before I think a lot of companies are embracing it. Plus, I'm really keen to see what is the effort involved to build that content and deploy it. Is that easy? Is it difficult? Can you link to existing data and it transforms it? I don't know all that yet, so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, that's the guides functionality is going to be pretty cool. And that's really the main piece of content in the release notes for Wave 2.
Yeah, I mean, my bag's field service as well, and it's something I've been kind of looking at as guides. The one that I actually loved was you can plot your stockroom or your storeroom out. So here's all of the different parts. Here's a row of 100 washers, and you can say, okay, because you're working on machine number X, you need to go to level 7, row 4, and it's that box, and it'll actually highlight and make the box flash in front of you.
Right.
But in terms of building the guides, it's really just like the same sort of business rules. It's drag and drop stuff for the majority of what you're doing. So building, it looks like they're going the same way with building all of the sort of the canvases. The canvases are going to look the same, regardless if you're doing a guide, if you're doing a business rule. But no, guides does look quite cool.
So you talked about stockrooms there. It just made me actually think about the AI element as well that they announced for the object notification stuff, for the object identification where you can train it. I wonder if with the HoloLens you can walk into a stockroom and it'll tell you how much stock you have and validate it. That'd be pretty cool as well, actually. Not field
Well, and
service
how-
as such, but I'm just curious.
Well, and how often would you have to train that though? You know,
Yeah.
as you have inventory rotating out, you know, if you start thinking in that kind of realm, and you start adding sensors on top of that, so that it can detect changes, and then you're really getting into the cool stuff. You know, so there's a lot of potential.
Skynet level right there, isn't it?
That's right. Exactly. So yeah, it's really cool stuff. I'm happy to see the things they're doing with mixed reality and with field service. I just really want to see it get to a price point where it's much more attainable by more customers. Because HoloLens is cool, really cool headset, really cool functionality, but there's so many scenarios right now where, you know, the requirements to be intrinsically safe, or if you have no connectivity, you lose that kind of capability. So
I think as well,
Yeah.
with HoloLens 2, it's an expensive part, as you say, for the training element. It is awesome. You can obviously put a HoloLens on 100 new starts and train them all up at once, and have one person monitoring them remotely on ideally that extra tablet, whatever it is elsewhere. But the expense of doing that does it outweigh a classroom-based training where it's touch and learn over the HoloLens and things, and that's something we have to see, definitely. I think there's value in it, there's distance in it, but it's the cost over the progress, I suppose, that it brings.
Yeah, I think I like what I see, and actually this is a mixed reality application with dynamics that I can actually see being useful, whereas some of the other ones are a little bit of a stretch. But yeah, taking HoloLens out in the field, I don't know how that would work. It kind of needs to be industrialized maybe, and this is where I think the mobile apps, like you say, Shawn, that could really lower the price, but also make it much more viable out in the field, because you've obviously got data and everything else. And you know, you're not so worried if you drop it or it's kicking around your car for a few weeks.
What technician cares about their tools?
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the cool things that the Model 2 of the HoloLens does is they're actually adapting it so that safety regulation hats, so like site safety hats that need to be certain width, certain height, certain DPIs, they will actually have hats that will build in the capability to have HoloLens 2 on it, which again, from a price point, I'm sure that's going to add a little bit on a price point, whereas you can pick up a mobile phone and you can use the remote assist quite easily. It doesn't have the same level of functionality, but it's still, I think it will be the go-to option.
Yeah, definitely.
As me and Ian can attest to when we check my washing when we try it out.
Well, and when you start talking about the mobile solutions for remote assist and for guides, then you start getting into the question, okay, well, now I'm losing my hands free that I get with HoloLens, right? Yeah. So how do I manage that? It was funny. I talked to someone, one of the guys at the remote assist booth at Business App Summit, and he said, "Well, I 3D printed a harness where I could put the device right here." He goes, "It's not for sale." Said, well, I didn't
also, I don't imagine for an industry I was just going to say, you can't 3D print your own helmet. Never mind 3D print your own harness. It's okay, guys. I've got this. Like, that's not going to pass any health and safety whatsoever.
No. But
I used 3D print on Microsoft, sent off the printer, got it back a week later. It's not going to happen.
Right. Well, but I mean, what about, you know, thinking outside of the box? If you could do it on a mobile device and then use, something akin, not exactly, but something akin to Google Cardboard, you know, where you could slot it into that kind of thing, that then reduces the cost down. It does, from a technology standpoint, it's going to reduce some of the sensor capabilities, because the sensors on the phones are clearly nowhere near as well defined as on a HoloLens 2. But you know, for a certain level of customer, I think that would be a good solution.
Definitely. The other you'll see as well there, isn't it, to prove whether it's going to work or not. That's a good shout.
Right.
So one of the things I had thought about was, if you think of like a factory floor, So the factory floor, they have their own machinery on that floor. What's to stop you having an Android tablet on an arm that you can actually bring down from like the top off or the side of the machine? Let's look into the body of the machine, open virtual assistant, and then there you go. You've still got your hands free, and you've still got the flexibility of the tablet being able to move on the arm of the device. So 150 quid for a tablet and an arm, you've got yourself a saving of having to get an engineer out on site.
And at the moment, you're right, it has to be Android, doesn't it? They've still not released an app for it for another operating system.
Still Android only.
Yeah, I think
Windows
they're
Phone.
looking. I think they're looking. Yeah. Hold your breath on that one. I think they're looking for probably sometime in the fall for the fruit-based devices.
I like how none of us really want to say it.
All right, we've now been going for 15 minutes. That means we've exceeded our limit of field service content on this podcast, so we must move on.
You're just bitter.
Okay. What do you want to talk about next then, Joel?
Let's talk about the whole Power Platform part of the release.
I thought you were going to talk about.
And how long do we have to talk about the whole Power Platform?
Yeah, because,
15 minutes.
Field service, Power Platform, we've hit our limit. Okay, so there's a lot in here, and I'm gonna highly summarize, and then we can dig into specific ones. The maker experience for solutions and forms is adding some things that we already have, like event handlers. So we'll be able to do like JavaScript events on forms in the new app designer. The components like Flow and PowerApps are going to be fully solution supported. Like right now, they're not fully solution supported. There's a couple of other things that I highlighted in here that really intrigued me. What is Outlook? App for Outlook is coming to PowerApps Plan 2. And it's going to be an app source app that you can download and install. So some people have bought Sales thinking they needed it to be able to use app for Outlook. Now you're not going to need that. Accessing all your apps across multiple instances from a single list, that's pretty huge. I got to wonder, though, what's that going to mean like when you have access to dev, sandbox?
It looks absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
It's I'll use one of Emma's quotes from yesterday when we spoke to her. It's like the Death Star. There's just bits connected everywhere. It just looks horrible. You have to scroll. I mean, if you think you've got dev, UAT, prod, pre-prod, and whatever else you've got, if you've got 6 or 7 different business units with their own apps, you're spending 15 minutes of your day just looking for the right app that you want to go into.
Right.
Yeah. Now, is that because you're a system admin though, or is that because you have not got the right governance around it?
You could use like groups to control who has access to apps, but I think it's like that's a good thing when it comes to Power Apps when you have a bunch of different environments that you're working in. But when you've got change controls, hopefully they'll add some kind of way to filter that. One thing that jumped out too, the new field types. We have new image and file data types. And this is pretty exciting. So like you can have an actual image, add additional image fields and have fields that are file types. So have you ever had a process where at a certain point in a process, somebody has to upload a document and you can't really do it because it all just goes in the general document list. Now you can call it a specific, say in a process flow, or I don't know if it's being process flows, but at least on a form, we need to verify a specific document has been updated, uploaded at a certain time, and that uses the Azure Blob Storage. That's pretty exciting. And one of the things in the improvements to Entity Designer, modify the primary field properties along with the entity definition. I'm assuming that means that is catching up to what we've had in CRM or CE. We've always had the ability to go in and when you create the entity, I don't know, does that mean we'll be able to change the field properties after you create it, or?
I think it's maybe only at time of creation. I think there was a limitation there before.
Yeah, that's what it is. You can change the display name, but obviously the schema name you can't. I would expect the same to carry across.
More like a parity thing.
Right. Right, and they're giving more control to data loss prevention rules. That things like making them directional and other things. External access is pretty huge. That to me is a big thing.
Yeah, I think there's several changes that are going to be pretty impactful. I mean, even being able to see all your apps across the different environments, if you're a normal user, that's useful. And external access, guest access, and the what else did you say, Joel?
Yeah, the external access of giving people, and that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to give access to your CDS without them having a license. It means kind of like what you can do with a guest account for a CRM environment today, you're going to be able to do. And they're going to have guest access for things that don't require AAD. So if you have a connector that maybe it's self-contained in the app or uses a SQL database somewhere, then you can share that externally without them being licensed for it. But you're still going to need licenses to share, to give somebody access to your app.
Yeah, I imagine it's a bit like the current Azure business-to-business license stuff, where you're given a license, you have to be validated. All it is just allowing you the gateway into your tenancy or your farm, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think these changes, they must do these changes to make the apps useful. And data loss prevention, people don't trust the rules there that are there at the moment, and there's just things that must happen in order for people to take these things seriously. So I think it's really welcome. Some of them are not coming for a little while yet. They're preview at the end of the year, which is kind of okay. But in a year's time, we'll be in a different world, I think.
Right, and if you listen to the Power Platform Daily Brief from yesterday, from Wednesday, Evan Chalky was on there, and he talked a little bit about the test framework, kind of like the next generation of Easy Read Pro, where we're going to be able to record kind of somebody clicking on through a process, and then use that to generate an automated test script. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
more telemetry from the apps, just a lot of core things to make the solution better. The modern Solution Explorer is becoming the default. That's good.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
If they fix the remaining gaps, I like it.
Right.
I find it really hard right now. I'm
key.
trying to force myself to start using it, but
Yeah.
just spent so long in the customization and solutions that I just always go to it. Even today, I end up using an XRM toolbox tool to create some fields because I was creating a mass amount of fields and then couldn't find them in my solution. I'm like, where are they? What's happened?
Yeah,
and
I think the
just not
problem
where
at
I was
the moment,
expecting them. It just went mental. Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve.
Like you, I've kind of forced myself to start using the different areas of the admin centers, but it's so hard to know where to go at the moment, to do the thing that you want to do.
The amount of URLs right now.
curve.
So what have you got? Make.PowerApps, admin.PowerApps, admin.PowerPlatform. They all do they're all for different things, and obviously one's the instance picker, one's your main admin center. But it's trying to remember which one you have to go to get to the point to enable preview AI or preview this or to create a field. That's the part I find really hard right now.
A backup. I had to go through that this week. I forgot that they took out the backup and stuff for the admin center out of the portal. I'm like, it took me a second. I had to go into admin.PowerApps and find the link.
I was looking for space. I was looking to see how much space we had. Went to the instance picker, the admin panel. There's nothing there to say. And I'm looking at it, questioning my own sanity, going, sure it's here. Like, I'm sure.
Yeah, you have to go to one, and then you think, oh shit, it's not in that one.
Yeah.
And then you go to the other admin center.
Every day is a school day.
Yeah, I've just kicked off.
Well, that's why they have in the release plan, they have one admin center to rule them all. So I think that's going to be I go to Power Platform Admin Center, and then from there, you then have to go other places. Like you can't get to solutions from there. So then you got to go to PowerApps.com.
Yeah.
Those types of things. So
what I need to do is update my bookmark. Right? That's my problem. I've got it all bookmarked. I've got the shortcuts.
So we have some things on the unified interface they're changing, which again is something I don't think everybody realizes, that if you want to know what's coming to the CRM user interface, you need to read the Power Platform release plan. But they're changing the way that the header works so that you have the fields on the header, but then if you click one place and they'll have them be editable. So it's kind of a mixed experience there. I think that having the fields displayed and be editable, you have things get cut off and everything.
Yeah.
You got anchoring of error notifications. So right now you get errors in all different parts of the form. They're going to have one place on the top where the errors are that you can click and navigate to where the error is. That's pretty good. Just some basic changes that I think people will notice them say, oh, that's nice, and then forget it never worked any differently.
Some of them are kind of parity things, like the notifications, clicking on notification. But I went through these with the customer this week, and overall they're kind of like, yeah, okay. The user impacting things that are just going to be switched on by default, like the grid changes, timeline changes. But generally they're good. They're a good thing. They're all going to be in the August preview as well, so you can check them out and do whatever training you need to do, which is particularly kind of an issue with this customer because they've got a lot of users. But I think overall it's just a slightly nicer user experience.
And here's one that I know Shawn's going to be really excited about: connection roles in unified interface.
Yes, because I love that feature so much. It's so easy to enter data into it.
Makes so much sense doing both sides of that connection.
Nobody ever gets confused about it. Yeah.
No, never.
Yeah.
And how about the email conversation threading? You can see actual related activities in the thread.
I really like this. I love this feature.
I like that better. Yeah, I love
the fact also it will notify if there's an email that I've not tracked and give me the option to track it and things. It's got that intelligence around it. I think that's really useful.
Yeah,
my customer freaked out about it when they seen it though, when 9 came. I've not tracked that email. Why is it in the system? Like, no, read the message. It says this is not tracked unless you choose it.
Oh yeah, no. I've had customers just say straight turn it off because they think it's like Big Brother.
Yeah,
I had to turn it off. I shed a tear.
Yeah. I always show people how they can opt out or opt certain contacts out. They're usually okay with that.
Oh, you've got good customers then.
Yeah,
he says it so flippantly. He says it and then looks away, just like, don't know what you guys are on about.
Well, yeah, that's Joel. That's Joel.
Sitting there dusting off his shoulders.
I give him a really intimidating look like that.
Oh, that's horribly intimidating. Like, I'm so scared.
It's just this sheer size of his head. They get intimidated by the gravity pull. Oh my God, I'll disagree with them. So.
All right. So one thing that we briefly mentioned was that right now you can put flows in Canvas apps and solutions, but you can't put flows that are used by PowerApps in solutions. So that's changing. I guess that's good.
Yeah.
So AI Builder. Do we know that? Is it always? I mean, AI Builder is basically a category for two things: object recognition and business card scanning. Right now, are they adding other things under the? I mean, because there's more to AI than finding your keys and scanning a business card. Well, here's the question: can you combine them together? Let's like say you lost your business card, and I want to find it and scan it. Can I do that?
Share it the room.
You could probably scan the room to say is business card yes or no if you train it well enough. But then that depends whether your business card, let's go American Psycho on this, depends whether your business card's bone, embossed, black, gold. How are you going to tell and how are you going to define there's that many different business cards? Will the AI pick that up?
So when I talked about business card scanning last week, everybody from EU and UK said nobody cares about business card scanning, and I said it was like the biggest thing ever.
It's cool, but
it was in '93.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
It's all about the QR codes now.
Yeah, well, I had someone at BizApp Summit come up to me and they wanted to connect, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot my business cards." And he goes, "I don't have business cards," and he put out his phone and he had a big old QR code on it.
Yep.
And like an idiot, I'm like, "What do you want me to do with that? Scan it?
Do that with
What does that scan to? What am I getting?" So
just give me your WhatsApp and I'll message you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I've been telling people.
Go ahead.
So I've been telling people at events and speaking things that they need to put their QR code on their About Me slide.
Yeah.
Pause on that slide for a minute, just let people take that picture and then all of a sudden they're connecting with you. But I was somewhere recently where, and I can't remember where it was, they basically told everyone in the room to turn on their LinkedIn Find Me in local area setting. So everyone who was in the room could connect with each other. I thought that was quite a cool thing.
As long as everybody, you need to have that turned on and everybody be in it. So you can't just turn it on and walk away from LinkedIn. You need to turn it on and be sitting on the page to see the other people.
Yeah.
Right.
So you turn it on, you see everyone who's there, click yes, yes, yes. Oh no, that bloody Shawn Tabor again, no chance.
You'd love to be in the room with him. But yeah, the AI stuff, it's interesting as to what it is. So when it gets deployed, it's meant to be enabled out the box. We went to one of our CDSs yesterday. We went into the instance, looked at it there, and couldn't see it. It wasn't available in the menu where it should be. Even going through to the Power Admin portal, it wasn't there as a choice to enable it. But then going into a Power App, going to insert the AI, it then became available. It was weird. So there seems to be no continuity as to how to turn these things on and off. But there's three things, as Joel says: object, business card, and binary.
Well, and that's part of the problem, because they're releasing, to my mind, they're releasing the AI components as the sales one and the customer service one, now the PowerApps one, right? Instead of and I'm hoping at some point it's going to be more of a consolidated across the board kind of AI opt-in feature thing. But right now I think it's tied to licensing. So that might be part of the confusion in where you turn things on, because sales AI is in a different place than customer service insights is in a different place than, the PowerApps AI builder. So,
and they probably have different teams doing it, but I think that the difference is sales AI is included in your licensing. You don't have to have any kind of Azure AI licensing or whatever. And again, I don't know if to use the AI builder, if that requires, or that's baked into the licenses too. I don't know. So in the flow, there's a lot of admin stuff around things like DLP rules and administrator. I think they are trying to get to everything running through the Power Platform Admin Center, which is good. The interesting thing is that the business process flow is now under flow, which I don't know anybody that goes to flow to create their business process flows. I guess you could. I've seen them there. But on page 300, one interesting thing is there's a new optional kind of vertical layout for business process flow that you can have docked on the side instead of on top, and it's positioning it to be a replacement for task flows. Task flows are going away, so it's instead of having it on the top, you have it docked and it runs long ways alongside the app form.
Yeah, I really like this feature actually. We've given feedback on business process flows in their current version before to Microsoft, and people like Neil Benson have been very scathing about their current functionality. But I think
Neil scathing?
Yeah, I know.
What is Neil not scathing about?
But I think that it slightly changes how you might use a business process flow. And I worked with a customer last year that had a lot of fields in each stage, like 20 odd fields in each stage, and they're still on Web Classic, and they can't really see how that they would move to unified interface. But actually this kind of brings it back in for them, and I think there's probably some different applications about guiding people through a process, through a particular business process, obviously. But it feels very subtle to me, but actually it would make them much more useful.
Yeah. So another interesting thing is offline support for business process flows if you use the business process flow in a Power App. And I think Power App based business process flows aren't there yet, but they will be. So that brings up to me an interesting thing. So let's say somebody wants to be able to update their opportunities when they're on the plane and they don't have Wi-Fi on this plane. That may create a case. Well, let's build a simple opportunity management Power App with offline capabilities, because it doesn't sound like business process flows are going to work offline. If I'm reading this right, maybe they already work offline. Actually, maybe if you use Dynamics, they work offline, but that will bring up some interesting scenarios where business process flows in Canvas apps is part of that weird convergence. You know,
definitely an interesting one because Canvas apps just now don't have a lot of offline capacity. There's a limited amount of storage you can have on your mobile device and things like that to use it, and you can't call on, like, you could have a 200 gig card on your phone or whatever device you're using, but you can't access that through PowerApp or a Canvas app just now, I believe.
Right.
So that's going to have to change for you to be able to do that sort of stuff as well, quite massively.
Yeah, it's not like a RESTGO that is designed to take your whole database offline.
Yeah.
Well,
microtransactions.
You got to really look at when you're creating Canvas apps and you want the offline functionality. You really have to consider whether or not, if it's a point solution, okay. But whenever I'm really wanting offline capability, I always lean back to the Dynamics 365 just app.
Yep.
Because invariably you're going to have the capability you want that you're going to build in that Canvas app. Plus you have it. I don't know. I just haven't seen a lot of scenarios where the point solution was so valuable and they couldn't get the app. So I don't know, but that's just me.
No, I agree. I think it's the question working out what app's the right app and what's the scenario and making sure you understand that scenario so that you can say, well, you don't need to be offline. Like, who's not online these days, really? I know you might be in a plane traveling, right? But I don't like to do a lot of work on the plane. I don't travel that high class. I don't have a lot of space. I can't get my laptop out on the plane.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've actually had quite a few. So we're the arse end of Scotland. So if sales guys are going out to a farm, that farm does not have mobile capability there. So they want to be able to download everything. They want to be able to quickly access it. So for us, being in the third world country that we are up here, offline capability is still quite a big thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's a requirement.
But do you guys have that for Canvas apps more so than you would just the regular Dynamics app?
It depends.
Have you run into that?
I've had the requirement where we've wanted to split out pre-sales and sales, and we've just wanted to give them something short and sharp. You're the first two parts of this full business process. You don't need the full client. Have this.
Okay, so fair enough.
You're just giving them the small part of it.
Yeah.
It's probably quicker than it is creating that business process as a shorter business process and handing it off through the Dynamics app.
Fair enough.
I think that's it. Everybody jumps to a Canvas app or a Power app. Is the Dynamics app still going to stay there, actually?
It will. I mean, I think here's what I envision happening. Since these are coming together, we'll have Canvas components inside of model-driven apps, and we'll have the other thing. PCF is going to Canvas apps. So these pieces are continuing to converge, and at some point they'll have one app launcher because it won't be a Canvas app or a model-driven app. And that's probably, looking at the BizApp Summit session, that's probably a year away. But I think the steps they're taking now are leading in that direction. But for now, there's still, I mean, just by itself, having an app called Dynamics 365 that people who do model-driven apps that don't have Dynamics licenses, that's confusing. So I know there's plans in the work. I wish Ulrich was here because I'd like to get his thought on data flows, which are a Power BI feature for streaming data, are coming into the Power Platform Admin Center. Now, I don't know. Basically, what it says is Power Platform data flows allow any Power Platform customer to easily define ETL pipelines to ingest data into their company's business data lake. So, and then the next part is you can author data flows in the Power App Maker portal. So that's interesting to me. So some of these things that you use with Power BI, it sounds like will be able to be leveraged with Power Apps as well.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this area, but the way I read it was, I was hoping it would mean that we could use, a much more intuitive sort of query tool to define ETLs. that we could then, suck data out of databases and put them into CDS or wherever. But it sounds like it's just for Azure Data Lake. I'm not sure, which makes it less useful to me. But what I was looking for was a kind of holy grail of a configurable batch engine for doing ETLs rather than writing lots of code and using SSIS and all that kind of thing, because I think that would be really useful for customers that don't have those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I never claimed to be a Power BI expert, so I'm not even going to speculate on that. Mark, you do some Power BI, don't you?
I do smoke and mirrors. I've done. I just like colours. That's all it is. It's just something that looks pretty. And as long as you've got it nice and pretty in front of the customer, it looks good. No, it's definitely. We're touching a lot of ETL stuff at the moment as well. So it's bringing the data in, bringing it out, reporting on multiple different things. So we've got customers who are using a data lake for the Microsoft stack, but also have proprietary stuff or are using Goldmine and kind of want to bring it all into one place to report on. And you see, at the moment, we're having to bring it into one place. We're then having to write queries between the tables to bring in all that data. Whereas if we can put it all at one layer and report on that one layer, it just makes writing the report so much easier. And as Andrew says, you can give it to the customer and say, here you go, here's your data in a nice format, go away and knock yourself out.
So now we've gone through the whole thing, and if Shawn, you weren't here, and some of you weren't here last time, but what's your biggest surprise from here? What are the things that just I think is a game changer? I mean, I will say I think the file storage is something that is going to have long-term impact, especially being able to do image and file types. I mean, to me, the biggest headache, or one of the biggest headaches, lots of headaches, but the biggest headache for me in building Canvas apps is storage of images. It's just not easy. SharePoint is okay, but it's different for everyone. And I think there's so many uses of the camera control and that sort of thing. Like the app I've been working on, I wanted to put a camera control in there, but it's like I didn't have a good option for where do I put those pictures and that. So I think the file storage is going to be, and also just coming together. I mean, already we're seeing the flow and PowerApps connectors making querying much easier. You fetch XML, but also they're going to be bringing in a filter like filtering on galleries and stuff. That's when I think the next level of CRM consultants are going to warm up to Power Platform, when it becomes just a little bit more like Configure CRM without taking away all the real maker abilities you have.
So one thing I thought was really cool, and you mentioned it there, was the additional files. So images. I now think we can do away with quite a lot of third-party tools for making documents. So we've done a little bit of a prototype on an account. So the customer wants to bring back a document with the account. So they need to have the company logo. They want pictures of everyone who's there. They want pictures of the products. They want to bring back their activities. We're doing that in a Word template, being able to pull back images that we've stored of the properties, of the logos. It's quite a cool thing. So we've done like a little bio and just done that in a Word template, but pulling from the data in the system. It's been quite cool.
I think for me, you've hit on something. The Word templates is something that has been severely lacking in a lot of this. Word templates are awesome. People don't use them as well as they are. They're much better than a mail merge. As you say, you can pull back all of that stuff. I don't think they get recognition for what they deserve. And I know it's not mentioned this, and it's a sideline conversation, and I could talk about it for a long time, but there's definitely a lot of power in there that's never used.
No, I'm with you. I mean, at MVP Summit 2009, I was the guy defending mail merge templates, and so I definitely see.
How'd you feel about that?
Yeah. So, but I see it. And I think there's, it just has been lacking a little bit.
Steps attested to a mail merge.
Sorry, Shawn, you're breaking up.
His face is frozen.
Yeah, he's been like that for a while now.
So the other part, and it's not directly in this release, but PCF,
Yeah.
it's just a game changer.
Yeah, for Canvas as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
When does PCF like grow up? I see a lot of cool examples, but I see everybody. And again, I think it's cool. And what we see, like Tangy just had his example of the tags, and there's just a lot of cool concepts coming up.
Yeah, I feel like
when do ISVs replace their solutions with PCF controls?
That's it.
Well, that's going to happen. PCF controls are going to be the new IP. It's definitely going down. There's a guy, Ben Thompson, who's already done some things around creating quite a few custom controls that he's now going to license out. But yeah, you are right. There are a few. So I was messed around. There's a credit card one. Totally breaches all data security policies. But I mean, it takes the card number, the CCV, and the expiry date.
I think it takes everything, so everybody in that call center just gets access to rip it off, export it, sell it on.
It does look good. One of the ones I did find really
Mafia
good.
will love that.
There was a drag and drop. It was a drag and drop for files, and it puts it straight into blob storage.
Yeah,
I think the one I saw was just showing the attachments inside of the database. In a file storage, but once they go to the file storage, then it should be, because I think the whole file storage thing is behind the scenes. I think the SDK and everything is keeping it the same way. So, but yeah, no, I think again that's great, and I would love to see. I love like the PCF gallery site that Guido set up. It's really a good idea to help find all this stuff until ISVs determine how they can monetize it and build it into their managed solutions. Then it would. I'm wondering, is Microsoft replacing any of the out-of-the-box controls with PCF controls that could be changed then?
I guess that's where it's going. I agree that I think, I've got this horrible feeling that actually with PCF, we'll go through a period of everybody just building a control because they can, and they'll, it's like when people learned how to write web pages and we got these hideous web pages. I feel like we're going to do that with PCF, and there'll be a lot of untalented designers coming out, or developers coming out with PCF controls. But then once you get ISVs on board, and maybe even people that do control suites for standard development like Telerik, Infragistics, I don't even know if they're still going, but those sort of guys where they can deliver the user experience and the great design and also make them useful controls for PowerApps, I think that will be a bit of a game changer in terms of the apps that you can develop.
How would Telerik make a control library that they could protect their IP around it?
Yeah, I guess that depends on the platform, whether they can do that. Obviously, they can do it for other types of development, which they've been doing for a long time. But yeah, it's going to require some maturity in the platform to allow people to develop PCF controls that then people can't just completely rip off.
At the moment, they're obviously sourced on GitHub, but they also supply solutions. So if they're in a solution, can you not just create a config file that has a user key that authenticates when you try to use it?
And if not, get it on Microsoft suggestions and we'll all upvote it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, there has to be some control around it for that element, isn't it? Like, even if you are an ISV and you make some custom controls, you might have a suite of them, but you can brand them for a company so they have their own custom controls. They can put on their own apps and stuff like that. Yeah, you could easily resell that, but you put my logo, your logo, anybody's logo in and drop it, but you need to be able to secure that, obviously, to be able to sell it, to make it of any monetary value.
So one thing we learned after we recorded last week's episode is the PowerApps portal is in its initial release just a rebranding of the Dynamics portal. It's not a new kind of Power App. I mean, it really it's new in that it's in the maker experience in the studio for Power Apps, but it's not a new thing for those who are familiar with Dynamics portals.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see that ADX prefix in there somewhere.
But I think it's an example of how additional walls coming down for people that currently have to have a Dynamics license for a portal or Outlook app won't need one anymore.
I love the idea. I think it's a really strong idea. And once you be able to, put custom controls in, and you can embed Power BI, all these things that are coming into portals. I think it'll make it so much easier to build portals. It's just we're in that kind of transitionary phase of this coming out of Dynamics and it being a separate thing within PowerApps. But yeah, it looks promising. We saw some stuff in Seattle around this. It does look really pretty cool.
Pretty much the only what I would consider core feature that isn't a sales or customer service feature that an XRM customer would need to be a P2 license that isn't there yet is document management. Documents is the other part that currently is a Dynamics feature that I don't believe works in pure CDS environments, but I'm sure that's on the way.
Yeah, and there's a kind of crossover with the file storage. Nobody's ever wanted to store files in Dynamics, quite rightly, but because of all the storage
bloat. Don't want to.
Yeah, you just end up doing it anyway. But I think this is a bit of a game changer in terms of if you just want to store files against a record, that makes it a no-brainer to use this feature. If you want some more document storage type functionality like versioning and maybe approvals and things like that, obviously you need to use something else. But
there's a findability thing too, which is the documents in the notes. But yes, you could search for them. But I'm saying, like the documents being in the notes, you got notes and documents. You guys do a lot of scrolling, but maybe the PCF control will be sufficient for that. That's a good point. But yeah, the relevant search, being able to search for the documents too. That's a good thing. And then of course you got everybody who tracks emails and gets little JPEGs of the signature and has 2,500 copies of Shawn Tabor's picture in their attachments.
As well you should.
I feel left out that I don't.
It's called branding, boys. It's called branding.
Just wrap it up on a PCF and we'll monetize it.
Oh wait, people in the UK don't use email signatures. They move beyond that to just put a QR code at the bottom, right?
I just put whatever my company attached from AD in exchange, right? I don't even sign off my emails. I'm too lazy. Thanks. That's about as the most you'll get.
I love when people just put their first initial. They don't even say thanks. Yeah. It's just like S. Like I'm that cool. Yeah. You were anointed. You were anointed to be able to speak with me. S. I could never see myself.
They bow down and worship for me. M.
Yeah. God.
So I think we've made it through the whole thing. We did talk about common data model. Okay, so when there talks about that they're adding new standard entities to the common data model, the common data model is the schema which they publish. Where do they publish the schema? On GitHub?
Yeah.
And basically, other people can use that to mirror the data model to have the common data model. That doesn't mean new stuff is coming into the common data service. It means they've expanded the model to include more standard system entities. So I don't see that something as a lot of people think about. I think it's important, and I think there's, again, we're seeing people like SAP and other people come on board there, and I'm sure there'll be others as well. But ultimately, I think we got through it. So that took 2 podcasts.
There's a lot in it, and it's
took me 2 days to read.
Did you guys talk about any of the customer service stuff in the last episode?
I don't remember last week. What are you most excited about for the customer service, for the bots?
Well, if you want to know that, then you tune into At Your Service next week and you'll find out.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Nice.
Saving it up there.
It's fishing.
If it's about bots, we've done it though.
And he's saying that, and his face isn't even moving. The whole 3/4 of his face that we can only see isn't even moving.
That's because he is a bot.
That's right.
We're not really talking to him. We're talking to Shawn Bot. Abot. All right, well, gentlemen, this has been fun and informative. And thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
See you guys.
See you guys.
Cheers.